Happy will those servants be whom the master finds vigilant on his arrival. Vigilant probably isn't the best translation of the original word because that sort of connotes someone watching at the window for everybody else saying, okay, quick, back to your workstation, the boss is coming. No, it's busy minding one's own work, one's own business. So the story is told, and it's said to be true, of a secretary at the offices of a large archdiocese who buzzed into her boss, the archbishop, and said, "Your Excellency, the receptionist downstairs just called up to say a man has come into the lobby and he claims to be Jesus Christ. What should she do?" With barely a pause, the archbishop replied, "Tell her to look busy." When at times, though, people have been literally frightened to death, thinking that the world might be coming to an end, maybe some recall that in the 60s at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, or many of us here in the aftermath of the terrorist attacks on 9/11 some 21 years ago, people flocked to church on Sunday, revealing that many who are not regularly worshiping God do at least deep down realize that they should be. But when the threat is no longer there or no longer feels ominous, many go right back to their own ways and don't feel all that compelled to much think of God, never mind to carve out precious time from their busy lives to come to church to offer him the thanks and praise he is due. Yet we are told that those whom the Master finds busy are the ones who will in the end be happy. But the end is not a moment, it's all eternity. Before God, it is not possible to pretend that what we do at the moment when we are fearful for our lives or the fate of our souls is in truth what we are doing all the time, if in truth it isn't our habit. As God is all-knowing and all-present, and does in truth know how each of us does spend the gift of time that he allots to each of us. What we don't necessarily appreciate when we are young is that in the end, even if life should last for us 9 decades, which sadly statistics say it probably won't for most of us, life is still rather short. Just ask someone in their 90s. The author of Psalm 90, which is my personal favorite, says it best when he writes, "Our span is 70 years, 80 for those who are strong, and these pass quickly, and we are gone." And so he goes on to urge us all to number our days aright, that is, as limited. While we may not live to see the final end of the world, we will all see it personally when the Lord comes for us in death. That is why so many of the monumental tombs that we find in the basilicas in Rome in particular are often decorated with hourglasses with wings on them, as those who have gone before us centuries before keep trying to remind us that time flies. It did for them. It will for every one of us without exception. So there is often also found on those tombs an inscription that says, "Memento mori," be mindful of death, but not so that we should be frightened, but so that we would be rightly prepared as we appreciate the truth that our lives here are not forever. And in the light of that great truth, we might try again and again to make every moment count by being busy about the things that are pleasing to God, and so ready to meet him whenever he should call us. Being busy about the things of God are first and foremost living in accord with the pattern that has been prescribed for us as followers of Christ from the very beginning, from apostolic days, that of encountering Jesus Christ through word and sacrament with the whole community of faith on the Lord's Day, on Sunday, and then going out from this assembly of the faithful to try to apply the message of the gospel in the midst of the world that we know, whatever corner of it that we occupy, trying to live truly Christian lives with and among whomever we may live or work, socialize or recreate. So we are being urged not to compartmentalize our life of faith, as some might be tempted to do, showing up on Sundays but then checking their religious life at the door until they come to reclaim it a week later, then living the days of their week as they please, rather than in manner that is pleasing to God. The truth of the lesson of how we are to be busy about the work of God is certainly very well illustrated among us by married couples, especially those who wake up one day to realize they're marking 3 or 4 or 5, and these days 6 or more decades of marriage, undoubtedly wondering where that time went, but knowing that even amidst all the curveballs that life has the potential to throw and the challenges and struggles they have faced, they have kept their promises to one another. Why? Because beyond that romantic love which first attracted them to one another and brought them together as a couple, they have through the years, and especially through the rough patches, learned how better to be patient and forgiving with one another. And so they have grown in a love that is in truth deeper than the one with which they started out, as that love becomes ever more unconditional with the passing of years and the accumulation of life experience. Thus, marriage, while not the only way, is clearly a major way in which many will truly be found by the Lord to be busy about the things that matter most to Him, being faithful to our commitments, being responsible to those to whom we are bound by bonds of marriage or blood, friendship or faith. So too is this true, although in different ways and settings, for clergy and religious, as well as those who are widowed or find themselves unmarried or who never marry. Surely the very best use of time, whether we are married or single, is never spending it overindulging in the distractions of purely worldly entertainments and pleasures that in the end will be completely meaningless as they pass away along with us, but rather in pursuits that will last because they please God and prepare us for the life with Him in that kingdom that He promises will be without end. So let us be busy and remain busy, worshiping faithfully, serving God and one another lovingly and generously, thus ever prepared to be found busy by the Master who promises happiness to His hard-working servants when He returns, which will be on a day whose coming is absolutely certain to dawn, but we are warned it will when we least expect.